When dealing with our daily emotions that we all face, there can be positive outcomes we control. Is living abundantly really possible for all of us, no matter where we find ourselves today? Absolutely, unequivocally, yes is the answer. Now, here is the host of The Long Bearded Guy, the Chief Catalyst, Strategist Guide at Jewel International, Gordon D. Melville.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Welcome to Red Fridays. You're with the Long Bearded Guy, Gordon D. Melville on Inspired Choices Network. And Red Fridays, R-E-D, remember everyone deployed. So they're willing to stand on the wall for us. Red Fridays, my red vest, where they're willing to stand on the wall and stand the fray. And we want to show appreciation and love for that. So thank you so much for that. I am so excited for you to be here today. I have a guest only for the second time in 2.5 seasons, almost 100 episodes. Dr. Alex Auerbach. Welcome, Alex. I'm so happy you're here with me today.
Gordon, I'm happy to be here with you, and I'm hoping by the end of the show I get a cool nickname like Long Bearded Guy, just like you. I don't have one yet. My friends were making fun of me the other day in the group chat, so I need to work on that.
There you go. Well, maybe we'll figure that out through the show, maybe. So welcome to everybody that's here. I know there's people listening from all over the world, literally, and I know there's people at work, people at home, and you know what? We're really, really grateful that you're here. If you give you a little bit of a heads up, you've got about 30 seconds to find yourself a journal or something to write in and write on and write with. But thank you so much for being here today. If for those of you that know me, you know I'm the long-bearded guy, but I'm on a mission to positively change the lives of every man I meet. I'm the founder and CEO of Jewel International. I'm a legacy and resiliency strategist, and for a pro basketball team locally here, not the Raptors, as my illustrious guest is working with them, but I'm a champion performance catalyst for them. And we almost won everything. They had the winningest season they've ever had last season, doing some mindset work. I'm a multi-award winning international best-selling author multiple times, but I teach the 7 levels of emotional intelligence for men. And so when I bumped into and met just recently Dr. Alex, I was like, we were almost talking out of the same book. It was the funniest thing to listen to, because reading through his stuff and he's here today to help launch his new book, which is the title of the show today. Call to Greatness is the title of his book. It's on pre-order. You can get it, and I'm sure we'll get the link for that into the chat so that you can do that. But we're talking the same way. We're talking about mindset work exactly the same way, and so I was really excited to have him on today. By the way, please, and do the housekeeping part, like, love, share, subscribe, do the fun part there. If you get onto any platform, we're happy to have you find us on Apple TV and Google TV and Amazon Fire and Roku and iHeartRadio and Spotify, anywhere that you listen or watch. We're on 450 platforms multiple times a week. And so please plug into that, like it, love it, share it, but engage. And I'm sure Dr. Alex will echo that. Engagement for me, I'm not just like and love it, share it, please, please. But the engagement part is to reach out to Dr. Alex, reach out to me, send us an email, send us a text, find us on LinkedIn, find us on social media, because that engagement is what's going to move us all forward. So we want to make sure we do that. So excited to have you in here today. Called to Greatness. So in this first piece, Dr. Alex, I want to just sort of talk a little bit and just have a quick conversation as we do for this hour, and back and forth. And so I was looking up the meanings of calling. So in the title of your book, right, Call to Greatness, it was like, what does it mean to have a calling? What does it mean to have to be great, right? What does greatness mean? And in the context of what we're talking about and what you're talking about in your book, for sure, what does that mean? Because a calling a lot of times has a spiritual overtone almost, right? You hear ministers or priests say, oh, I had a calling on my life to come into this ministry. It can be a significant, something that's bigger than we are, right? Whether it's a vocational thing or whether it's just a hobby or something. I feel called to help the homeless, or do you know what I mean? When you're using it in the title, can you talk about that a little bit? Introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us what you're doing and where you're at, and then share with us.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to give a quick background on myself. I'm a counseling and performance psychologist by training. So basically got my PhD in counseling psychology, which allows me to treat mental health and clinical mental health issues, and essentially a double major in sport and performance psychology that allows me to think about the part of the spectrum from wellness to peak performance. And I've worked with a host of high performers now. I currently work with a handful of musicians, pro athletes, CEOs, executives. Before that, I was the sports psychologist for the Toronto Raptors. I've done some work with elite military units here in the US, worked at a few big colleges, and in a past life before I was a psychologist, I was a college football coach. So I've played a bunch of different roles in sports, but have always really been interested in the mental side of the game and what allows people to really reach their full potential. When you get to the level of sport like the NBA or the NFL, what you find is that most players are pretty physically similar. Of course, you've got a few outliers like a LeBron James who's managing to play for 20 plus years at a ridiculous level, but by and large, most of the pro athletes are pretty much the same physically, right? If you look at the NBA, for example, most of them are between 6'7" and 6'11", around 200 to 250 pounds. And so you start to think about, well, what would really separate the best from the rest, right? And in my view, it's the mindset. It's the mental game that allows these players to time and again rise above their peers and have these all-time great performances and become sort of a legend of the field. And so Called to Greatness and the title is really born out of this idea that actually everyone is a performer, right? Everyone has something that they care about, that they want to be great at, whether you're a parent staying home, raising your kids. I know exactly 0 parents raising their kids who don't want to be a great parent, right? And so that is a little bit of what it means to have a calling, right? You care about something more than yourself. You're inspired to become the best version of yourself. And that's what we were thinking about when we called to Greatness, right? And then the greatness element is the idea that greatness is really idiosyncratic and individual. Greatness for me might look different from greatness for you, and that's totally fine. But what we want to do is give people the tools they need to find their individual version of excellence. And if we can do that, my view is that we can make the world and community that we live in a bit healthier, a bit higher performing, that people will feel more fulfilled with these sort of fundamental skills I outline in the book that allow people to think, feel, and perform their best. So that was the genesis of the title, and why I'm so excited for everyone to have the opportunity to read it and essentially figure out how to put that call into action.
Perfect. And again, you know what, talking mindset, I say all the time, there's a difference between, I'm certified as a high performance coach, but there's a difference. They're all high performance. They're all pro athletes. They're all drafted, right? They're all high performance. So what's the difference between, they're not all champions though, right? So what's the difference between a high performance and a champion is exactly what you're talking about. And a lot of times I find that mindset piece is what is the distinguishing factor. They're doing something everybody can do, right? So, you know, LeBron James in a game 7 of a finals, right? There's no time left on the clock. He gets fouled. They give him 3 free throws and his team's down by 2 points. Most NBA players implode on themselves in that situation, right? Not because they don't understand the concept of a free throw, the mechanics of it, but
Sure.
it eclipses them because they don't have mind mastery, right? They don't have emotion mastery. And so, and like I say, listening to you talk or reading some of your stuff, working with the military, you were working with I made a note, parajumpers.
Yeah, I've done a couple military things. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I've jumped out of a perfectly good plane I was going to land anyway, 288 times. And
Wow.
the last 2 were halo jumps with military, with the paratroopers in El Paso,
Cool.
Texas. So I again, another synergy that was there. And I was like, that's so cool, you know. But you know what? You're absolutely correct. It's the mindset piece that everybody can do it. But a lot of people, most people abdicate the power, right? Control is an illusion outside of ourselves. And like you say, if you have children or pets, you realize very quickly control is an illusion. It's not real outside of ourselves, right? We can influence it, but we can't really control it. What we can control is what we think and what we do. But most people don't stop to master control of that. They don't spend any time with that, right? With my pro athletes, I talk to them about skill set, and you and I talked about that a little bit. Skill set, gear set, mindset. Right? You can have all the skill you want. You practice that. What you have the best world-class gear. You spend all this time and money and energy, but then you don't look at your brain in terms of, right? If I'm fighting with my wife or I'm distracted by whatever, all of a sudden I can't harness the gear and the skill because my brain's messing me up. And so, you know, those elite players, and not just in sports, but in business, in life, the people that you name or I name that we both go, yep, I know exactly who that is, whether we watch that or not, or listen to that or pay attention to it, we know that name because they've mastered control of their mind and their emotion and have made themselves sort of the cream of the cream, the elite, right?
Yeah.
So that's it. And I think that same kind of a concept flows in the piece that, and I appreciate you sending me the little bit of a clip of your book. I'm very excited to have it. And yeah, as you can't see the 5 bookcases of books. I read 5 to 7 a month. So business books. So I'm very excited to add yours to that and to read that. But trying to get that concept, and you know what, maybe it's a thing. How do you find connecting? And thank you, by the way. And I have to tell people, one of the connections I had to Dr. Alex was, I had a bunch of questions for him, and we had booked like 20 minutes, and at the beginning of the conversation, I said, well, I've got a few questions, like 35 questions, and we both laughed and went, that'll never happen in 20 minutes. But at the end of the conversation, you said to me, you know what, you said you had more questions, send them to me and I'll answer them. And I was very honored that you would do that, that you would even offer to do that. And it went through my brain, well, if he doesn't do great, but I'm blown away that he even offered. But you did a couple of weeks later, and they weren't just one line, right? They were paragraphs for the other 30 questions. I was blown away. So thank you so much for that.
Of course, yeah.
Right. But I think that goes to, in terms of even what we're talking about, right? Call to greatness. That's part of what sets you apart from some of the other of your peers in your market, in your space, is that that extra step forward, right? You're putting that out, and that kind of stuff connects to people. It catches people off guard because, sadly, because most people don't do it, right? They let good become the enemy of great, right? Oh, it's good enough. It's all good. Don't worry about it, right?
Yeah, no
right.
doubt.
So I really appreciate that. I read through them all. My wife was like, what are you reading? I'm like, oh, sent me like pages and pages. There's like 30 answers here. So I was very excited to read that. And I appreciate that very much. We need to take a quick break. We gotta pay some bills and whatnot, but I got 2 sponsors I want to talk about. The first one, just real quick, is Jose Escobar, is the founder and CEO of the Entrepreneur's Bookshelf. Check out the Connected Leaders Academy membership to take your business to the next level. This is the perfect tribe to learn, grow, and connect like never before. The Connected Leaders Academy tribe brings together some of the highest level entrepreneurs from all over the world. And both my producer and I are members of that group. But set up a free virtual coffee with Jose Escobar today. You can reach him at theentrepreneursbookshelf.com. That's theentrepreneursbookshelf.com. Incredible group. And the second one, and I've said this for almost 100 episodes, as we go to break, we're going to pause and breathe. Pause and breathe. We don't do that a lot of times. And what we're asking is that as we pause and thinking about what we've been talking about so far, we're letting it settle. It's like having sorbet between courses, right? It sort of cleanses your brain and prepares you for the next piece. And our pause and breathe is brought to us all. It's sponsored by Austin John Haynes. Expand the pause and breathe. So if you want to expand this concept or learn more about that, connect with the mindful poet, mentor, Austin James Haynes, to spark your midlife reinvention in an unexpected way. Austin's journey from college dropout to a Fortune 500 company to a poet will inspire you. Go to austinjhaynes.com for his latest podcast, Recorded in Nature. And he does a lot of that in nature, and he sits and relaxes and breathes, pays attention to his breath. Athletes, to calm themselves down when they're all jacked up and excited, part of that is they pause and they look after their breathing. They do breathing exercise to make sure, hey, I'm holding on to some of that. It's not make it go away, it's harness it and then send it in a positive direction. So as we go to this first break, don't forget to pause and breathe. When we come back, we're going to talk to Dr. Alex about his book and get him to synopsis a little bit. We'll ask him some questions about that and get him to share what the book is about. So as we go to this first break, don't forget to pause and breathe. Don't go anywhere. You're with the long bearded guy, Gordon D. Melville, and Dr. Alex Auerbach on Inspired Choices Network.
How much of our daily success relies on our mindset? Anything we are unaware of can still impact our lives. When dealing with our daily emotions that we all face, there can be positive outcomes we control. Why is the word stigma such a BS misnomer? Is living abundantly really possible for all of us, no matter where we find ourselves today? Join the long-bearded guy, Gordon D. Melville. The Chief Catalyst Strategist Guide at Jewel International invites you to an enlightening, sometimes shocking discussion. He will be challenging you to explore your own answers to these questions and so many more. This will lead you towards living an abundant, successful life no matter how you define it. Gordon D. Melville is live Fridays at 12 noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the long-bearded guy with Gordon D. Melville. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also send an email to the long-bearded guy at gmail.com. Now back to the program.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. You're with Gordon D. Melville, the long-bearded guy on Inspired Choices Network. And today we're with Dr. Alex Auerbach. And I wrote it down here. I didn't want to mess it up.
Yeah, it's all good.
Performance psychologist and executive coach. Incredible human being. And you know what? He's pre-launching and launching his newest book called to Greatness, oddly enough. So we're talking to him today. We want to ask a couple quick questions here, and I want you to share about the book in a little deeper way. But the one piece that sort of in the segment that you sent me, thank you for that, was you said the book talks about two basic pieces and answers. There were two basic questions you had as a premise. What allows humans to perform at their best when it matters most? And what enables humans to reach their full potential? And those questions, again, flop right into my wheelhouse in terms of that. Those are great questions. I love to have answers to those questions. Again, why I want to read the book. But can you explain or share with us what expand on that and share with us about the book a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah. So the two questions really live at the heart of the two parts of the book. The first part of the book is what I would call typical performance, and it's about really creating a foundation that allows you to sustain success over the long term. And I think about performance as sort of, there's a baseline level that you can constantly raise, and it's typical performance is how you show up on your day-to-day, right? It's, the way, if you're a parent, the way you show up to raise your kids. If you're a CEO, it's your typical Wednesday meeting, right? If you're an athlete, it's how you show up to practice or regular season games. And of course, you want to build a set of skills that allows you to consistently raise that baseline. And over time, that gets you toward or closer to living a life where you're achieving your full potential because you're sort of progressively getting better and better. And then the second part of the book is about peak performance, or what we might call maximal performance, is these really critical moments where you're called upon to be the best possible version of yourself, right? It's the Olympian who sets a PR and wins a gold medal. It's the athlete who, it's LeBron sinking those 3 free throws you mentioned in part one, right? To win a playoff game. It's these moments where we're under the biggest pressure and the brightest lights, and we're responsible for delivering the best performance. And the two sort of work hand in hand, but they are a little bit a different set of skills, right? The things that you need to sustain excellence over the long term, take a lot more practice. They take a long time to set in. There's some foundational things to do that you've got to get right, like sleep and eat well and move your body and, engage in mental training. And then there's a set of skills for peak performance that you've also got to get right if you really want to have that top performance in a high moment. And so that's those two questions. They seem similar, but they're just a tad bit different. Of course, there's a little overlap in the Venn diagram there, right? But that's really how I broke the book down, because I wanted people to start thinking about peak performance as a bit broader and more significant than just like, how do I have a great game out there? And that, of course, that's important, but that alone is not going to be super fulfilling and is not going to last a lifetime, right? And ultimately, for me, what I want people to do is become the highest, best version of themselves.
Right.
And so in the first part of the book, I unpack some of these sort of core principles. So it's things like building adaptive capacity, which is basically your ability to take on progressively higher, harder challenges, or your ability to build mental strength and confidence, how you respond resiliently, or how you endure through difficult things. And then I end with this sort of core skill called self-regulation and self-regulated learning, which you talked about as sort of mastery and emotional control. It's really this ability to direct, control, influence your thinking, feeling, physiology, and behavior in these most critical moments. But of course, you need that skill all the time, right? If you're trying to be a disciplined person who exercises, you need a bit of self-regulation.
Exactly.
And then there's another element to self-regulation called self-regulated learning that sort of forms the underpinning of deliberate practice, which a lot of people are familiar with from Malcolm Gladwell's kind of 10,000 hours rule, though the science doesn't actually support 10,000 hours. It supports this idea that you really need high quality practice over time to really become elite at what you do.
Right.
So I wrap up part one with this idea that you've got to master self-regulation and self-regulated learning if you want any chance of becoming a peak performer and really being elite at what you do. And then the second part of the book talks about things like quality preparation, managing your energy, how you engage in things flexibly so you can be in the moment so that you can really deliver, again, under the highest pressure and brightest lights.
Right. Well, and I find champion isn't built on the court in the boardroom. That's not where champion, right? Under the lights isn't usually where champion is. That's not where it's not born there. It's born on the typical side of the equation, right? It's born in the stuff that nobody sees. Kobe doing 1,000 free throws before on a game day, right?
Yeah.
That nobody sees. There's no cameras. There's no accolade for that. There's no, right. It's that, but to have that discipline you're talking about, right? I tell my guys sometimes, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready, right? It's that sort of being in that, not staying in a peak place, because that's really difficult to do over a long period of time, right? To sustain that. People like Kobe, he's sustained, but he's a bit of a unicorn in terms of, most players couldn't do what he did. Physically, their body wouldn't do it. And again, for a couple of decades, they couldn't do it. But holding that at a higher level, that putting in the work when no one sees it is where the champion is born. That's that little piece of, extraordinary is that little extra, but it's so easy to do right now because so many people have abdicated out of doing that little bit of extra, right? They're allowing that good to be the enemy of great. They've hit that trap, that good enough trap. And they're like, you know what? It's good enough. I don't have to push that hard, right? I don't have to go that extra step. And in a society where mediocre gets celebrated almost, right? Well, my kids, I have 3 teenage sons, and growing up, after some conversations with them where they would bring home a participant ribbon, I was like, don't show me a participant ribbon. Do you know what I mean? Showing up, you have to do that. Absolutely. Be in the game, be on the field, be in the game. But in life, there is a first, second, third. I said, even if it's a 6th place, like however many they're going to count, that's great. I'm all over that. Bring that, show it to me. We'll celebrate that. Participating, I will tell you, good job that you participated. But in life, participation doesn't always guarantee. Just showing up doesn't mean you're going to succeed. Do you know what I mean? So you have to do that extra work. You got to do that self-mastery around whether it's a dedication, a discipline, right? People don't want to be disciplined per se, right? Like Jim Rohn used to talk about the weight of regret. It will kill you, will literally bury you. The weight of discipline is fairly light. Is it a pain in the butt? Yes. But you know what? Discipline, when you get into it and start to do it, right? People like, well, David Goggins is a great example of that. Now he's, again, a unicorn, right? You can't compare yourself to somebody like that, right? But it does give us a level of something to aspire to, something that, you know what, that inspires me to read about that. Jocko Willink, that same concept around pushing, taking extreme ownership and then pushing forward in terms of not allowing myself to go, you know what, it's okay, right? I've done enough. Now, I balance that off a little bit. Napoleon Hill used to say, you need to do the most expedient thing at any given time. But sitting watching Netflix, eating popcorn with my wife might be the most expedient thing to do in the moment, because I need that downtime. I need, right? So it's not I'm not an expectation guy, but setting a really high standard, right? That I want to try and attain, but that doesn't mean I have to connect with my wife, or I have to connect with my kids. It's downtime. No. And I find that with relationships, that happens a lot, right? The wife goes, you're never here. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm home for supper every night. And she's like, yes, but your body, your flesh, right? Your meat suit is sitting here, but your brain is thinking about your tee off time for tomorrow and the appointments that you've got and the stuff that your brain isn't here. And that's the vibration that they're feeling in the moment, right? And so being able to go, no, I need to be present, which goes back to the whole pause and breathe thing too. That lets me be present in the moment, right here, right now, because I may not get the opportunity, or being able to step into that and do it and execute what I've learned out of the spotlight, right? At practice and whatever. And you've been at more NBA practices than I've been at, but my experience with that was watching these guys. They were pounding as hard in practice as they did on a game day, right? Because they're practicing what they wanted, how they wanted to act and respond and be when they're in a real game, right? If they're practicing at 50%, when they get into a game, all of a sudden they have to ramp up and they're wait, this isn't how I practiced, right? And it doesn't translate sometimes. But I love that concept around, what did you say? Typical and
typical and maximal. Yeah.
Maximal. You talked about micro moments, critical micro moments. And when I read that, I kind of think of a fireman, and I think it's Brené Brown that says, 5 seconds of courage. It just takes that long, right? But that micro burst, firemen running into a building, it's not lack of fear, it's being afraid and doing it anyway, right? Courage is doing it anyway. And so, but once they make the choice, then they have to actually go, right? So it takes that 5 seconds of, oh man, I don't want to do it. And boom, they go and do, but in that half a second of making the decision and stepping forward, that's where the magic is, right? So when you were talking about micro moments, it's in that split second, right? You and again, you've seen more sports than I have, but being able to step into that and go, wow, you know what? They're moving so fast, right? Jordan is a huge fan of mine. I'm a huge fan of his, and watching him jump off the floor and then with the ball in one hand, and as he's going up, he changes hands, and it's like, well, how the presence of mind. Yeah. Right? It's in a blink of an eye. That's instinct. That's not. Do you know what I mean? That's just born into him. This is who he's being. Do you know what I mean? It's not
that's being an expert. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you think about it, as soon as you think, it's already the seconds passed already. That microsecond is already gone, right? It's very cool. We're going to talk some more about this in the next segment. I got to take another quick break. These go way fast. I'm 100 episodes. I'm so shocked at how fast the time goes. But anyway, don't go anywhere, people. We're gonna talk some more to Dr. Alex. But again, Jose Escobar, founder and CEO of the Entrepreneur's Bookshelf. Check out his Entrepreneur's Bookshelf to learn more about his morning and evening routine mastery program that is changing people's lives. This program will help you install systems on the bookends of your day to maximize your morning and evening routine. Set up your free strategy session with Jose Escobar today, and you can reach him at theentrepreneursbookshelf.com. And again, if you're not doing some kind of morning and evening routine, you're fooling yourself in terms of being able to maximize your days, both at the end and on the beginning of the next one. So you need to have some kind of a routine there. And then as we leave for this break, again, pause and breathe allows us to be present, but it lets us percolate on what's going on, slows us down for a second, and lets us prepare for the next segment. And that's brought to you today by Austin J. Haynes. Expand your pause and breathe. Again, if you want to understand that concept a little deeper, connect with the mindful poet and mentor Austin J. Haynes to spark your midlife reinvention in an unexpected way. Go to austinjhaynes.com for his latest podcast, Recorded in Nature. He does a lot of his stuff in nature. And again, that helps ground, right? Going into a space, we all have lots of stress and lots of things going on in our life, but to be able to slow down, intentionally slow down, pause and breathe, and let it settle. As we go to this break, don't forget to do that. And we will be right back with more Alex Auerbach and Called to Greatness. You're with Gordon D. Melville, the long bearded guy on Inspired Choices Network. We'll be right back.
How much of our daily success relies on our mindset? Anything we are unaware of can still impact our lives. When dealing with our daily emotions that we all face, there can be positive outcomes we control. Why is the word stigma such a BS misnomer? Is living abundantly really possible for all of us, no matter where we find ourselves today? Join the long-bearded guy, Gordon D. Melville. The Chief Catalyst Strategist Guide at Jewel International invites you to an enlightening, sometimes shocking discussion. He will be challenging you to explore your own answers to these questions and so many more. This will lead you towards living an abundant, successful life no matter how you define it. Gordon D. Melville is live Fridays at 12 noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
The Connected Leaders Academy is the #1 fastest growing networking community for entrepreneurs. CLA assembles high-level leaders, titans of industry, and business owners under one roof. If you're an entrepreneur looking to grow personally, professionally, scale your influence, develop skills, and expand your network exponentially, the CLA is where you need to be. Want on to more podcasts and shows, speak on more stages, sell more books, products, and services, get more leads, referrals, acquire new clients, develop lifelong friendships, and more. Join the Connected Leaders Academy today. Contact Jose Escobar on Facebook or check out www.claglobalsummit.com for more information.
This is the long-bearded guy with Gordon D. Melville. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to thelongbeardedguy@gmail.com. Now back to the program.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. You're with the long-bearded guy, Gordon D. Melville on Inspired Choices Network. We're with Dr. Alex Auerbach today, and we're talking about his new book called To Greatness. And we're talking about what that means and what his idea and his intention with that is. As we continue to talk and discuss this, Dr. Alex, you ask a question, what makes for a good life? And so, and I talk about similar type things. What for you, and in terms of the book and in terms of what your philosophy is, what for you, how do you answer that question? What makes a good life for you?
There are two parts to a good life for me. The first is high quality relationships with people who help make you better.
Amen.
We know that having good relationships, right, whether with a spouse or friend group, prolongs your life. These are the things that end up being the center of your narrative. They're how you make sense of who you are. They're the people that support you and give you a sense of resilience. So high quality relationships are sort of the bedrock of having a great life. And to everyone, that relationship might be different, right? For some people, it's really family centric. For some people, it's community centric. For some people, it's building a relationship with a larger platform. But having really personal, meaningful connection with an important group of people really matters if you want to have a life where you feel good about what you've accomplished at the end of it and you feel fulfilled. The second piece for me is novel experiences. And I think people underestimate the value of this. And I don't mean novel experiences like, going out and doing extremely risky things just to sort of like chase a high. What I mean is that people end up having, people when they have novel experiences, they reimagine and reformulate a little bit of their identity and how they make sense of themselves. And these become the stories that they tell, right? So I'm thinking about you, and you've jumped out of a plane 280 something more times than I have ever, right? I worked with parajumpers, but I never jumped.
Right.
And I'm imagining that first time that you jumped, that experience of stepping out of the plane fundamentally probably changed a bit of the way you thought about yourself and what was possible. And those moments are really cool. And that was novel for you. Those are the kinds of experiences I'm thinking about, but they don't always have to be jumping out of a plane, right? It might be something as simple as trying a new restaurant or taking a new vacation or just going a different way to work and seeing what you see, right?
Right.
But
The intentionality of that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They can actually alter the way people think about themselves. And so to me, that's sort of the foundation of a good life. And then if you can wrap these psychological skills I write about in the book around these two things, you end up feeling personally really fulfilled, but you also watch your performance improve. And performance can be kind of your impact on other people. Again, it can be show up in boardroom results, right? Or show up on a basketball court. But ultimately, that's what I think most people want. I think most people feel fulfilled when they're becoming the best version of themselves, seeing themselves make meaningful progress, experiencing new parts of the world, and feeling really connected to the people around them.
Absolutely. Well, you know what I think what I'm finding is, and I'm by the look of you, to me, I'm probably twice as old as you, but what I'm finding is as I get older, the concept around it's not about my dollars and cents anymore. It's around my significance, right? To your point in terms of novel experiences, right? What am I leaving behind? And so I talk a lot in my shows about legacy because, and athletes are all the time, hey, what's my legacy? What am I leaving? How are people ever going to think of me? And a lot of times what I think people step past is the fact that we're leaving. Legacy isn't something at an end of life. Legacy is something that we've poured into people, right, during our life. And so if we're doing that every day without realizing, there's no awareness around that. And so, leaving that legacy, that significance, if I can do that as part of my, as part of my experience, I love the intentionality of what you're talking about, because we can grow by organically, right? We could do that, right? But that's going to be whatever happens. It's just a willy-nilly, right? Whatever direction it goes. But having some intention around that, sometimes it's hard. And you talk about the simple things. Sometimes it's hard. I love going to the same bar, right? Norm kept going into Cheers. That dates me, but everybody knew who he was. He didn't go to another bar. He always went to Cheers, right? Because they knew him. But for him to go into a different bar, he would have had to use some intentionality, and he would have had to push himself to try, okay, you know what? I'm going to try something different. Well, that can be scary for a lot of people. They get used to what their routines are, and then they don't want to push that envelope. When I was doing that, I was I traveled with Grant Cardone for 7 years and spent a bunch of time with him. And he had said, don't look back and have regret. So we didn't start skydiving, right? We wanted, to your point, novel experiences. So I did a cattle drive in Montana for a week, right? I always thought saddle sores was a figure of speech. It's not. It's really not. But that got us going. It got your heart rate going, right? We had a lot of fun. And then it was like, okay, what else can we do? Well, we started rock climbing. And that was cool, but it got that adrenaline going, and you're looking down, holy crap, right? But eventually that high wore off. Okay, what else can we do? So then we started bungee jumping. And again, and I'll never forget, and to your point, I'll never forget the very first time I bungee jumped. And I looked at the guys that talked me into doing that. And I'm like, if I live, I'm going to kill you, because I was so scared, right? But you go off and you're bouncing and bouncing. Oh, this was awesome. This is awesome. I gotta do this again. And so then we started to do that all over the place. And then the very first time we went skydiving, we needed, because eventually the bungee jumping, okay, this is fun and it's a blast, but it didn't jack you up the same way. And again, a little bit of an adrenaline junkie, I'm sure, was in play there. But that intentionality to go, I know it's going to scare me, but I'm going to do it anyway. Right. And so the very first time, they were tandem jumps. I did 2 tandem jumps at the beginning. You're strapped to somebody else. And for those of you that want to try that at some point, they're going to tell you in the plane, we're going to count to 3 and then we're going to jump. And we're like, okay. And it was 1, 2, and out we went. It was like, what the hell? You didn't count to 3, right? If they wait to 3, they get stopped. So just a little, right? But the very first time I did that, I remember looking at my buddy. I'm like, if I live, I'm going to kill you, because we were all scared, right? I find it very interesting that when they do studies on fear, they use skydiving. The one study I was looking at was a skydiving thing, and they go to the class and they learn about what's going to happen or what could happen, techniques and whatever. Their heart rate's going up. They put heart rate monitor on them, and their heart rate goes up. And then as they walk out onto the tarmac, their heart rate goes up and up and up. And as the plane takes off and lifts off, right, as it goes up, their heart rate goes up. But the weirdest thing happens when they actually exit the plane. Their heart rate goes down instead of up. And I'm like, well, that's completely counterintuitive to what I thought it would have done. But what that taught me or teaches is that all that anxiety was for what? Because once you get into the experience, you push yourself past that fear. That you hear people say all the good things you want are on the other side of that fear, right? But once you step through that fear, you realize, oh, this is wicked. This is so cool. And they get all excited, right? The same thing happened in El Paso with the military, and the cone on the back of that plane opened, and we had to train for a week with oxygen strapped to yourself. And when they do a halo jump, they pull the cord 100 feet off the ground after we jumped out of a plane at 42,000 feet. Wow. And they pull the cord at 100 feet because it's an insertion method, right? They wouldn't let us do that. Insurance wouldn't let us do that. 700 feet was it. But once you fall in 41,300 feet, you almost, it goes through your head. I can jump from here. Like it's just that little bit, right? But the same thing went through my brain, and I couldn't talk with his masks on, but I looked at him and I kind of winked, and he's like, yeah, I know what you're thinking. We were both thinking, if you live, you're going to kill me. I get it. Right. But it was that jack up again of what becomes, in the very first time, I'll never forget that, jumping out of the regular plane, the very first time, once I jumped out, all the BS in your life disappears. Literally, right? It's like, what's most important to me in the moment that you're thinking, I could die right here. What's important to me? What when you boil it all down, what's most important? And I think that's going to be different from everybody, right? For you, it might be different than me. Right. But how we show up and how we intentionally put ourselves out there to take those steps. They say the graveyard is the most expensive property there is, because so much of people's potential never got realized because they didn't do anything with it. Right. Like they didn't have that. They weren't looking for those novelty pieces or those novel experiences in their life. And so they went to the grave without, they may have had a good life. They may not have had the life they could have had because they didn't have the, intestinal fortitude to actually step through that fear. Right. I love that concept. Again, I can't wait to read the book. Because again, it's you and I are kind of talking from different angles, but we're talking basically out of the same book. The concepts, I kept reading the excerpt again. I read it again this morning, and I was like, "Yep, yep, Like it was the weirdest thing, because it's like, yeah, I talk about that this way. Vernacular might be different, but the boiled down concept is exactly the same. And I'm like, I love this. I got to try and spend. And I know you're now back in the US, but we got to try and figure out how to do Zooms with you more often so that we can collaborate and talk some more.
Anytime.
Yeah, I'm all over it. We want to do that. All right. So as we go to another quick break here, don't go anywhere. We're gonna do my regular thing. We'll wrap. We'll review a little bit, and then we've got some call to action this week, the way we always do, that I think it will be impactful and will connect you very, very well to Dr. Alex. So don't go anywhere. And again, as we go to break, don't forget to pause and breathe. Ground yourself. Be present in this moment, right?
How much of our daily success relies on our mindset? Anything we are unaware of can still impact our lives. When dealing with our daily emotions that we all face, there can be positive outcomes we control. Why is the word stigma such a BS misnomer? Is living abundantly really possible for all of us, no matter where we find ourselves today? Join the long-bearded guy, Gordon D. Melville. The Chief Catalyst Strategist Guide at Jewel International invites you to an enlightening, sometimes shocking discussion. He will be challenging you to explore your own answers to these questions and so many more. This will lead you towards living an abundant, successful life no matter how you define it. Gordon D. Melville is live Fridays at 12 noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is the Long-Bearded Guy with Gordon D. Melville. To participate in the program, join the live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also send an email to thelongbeardedguy@gmail.com. Now back to the program.
Hey everybody, welcome back. You're with Gordon D. Melville, the long-bearded guy on Inspired Choices Network. And today we're with Dr. Alex Auerbach. And I just want to put this one piece in. Expand your pause and breathe. If you want to learn more about that, connect with a mindful poet and mentor, Austin James Haynes, to spark your midlife reinvention in an unexpected way. Go to austinjhaynes.com for his latest podcast, Recorded in Nature. As we're wrapping up and coming to a close here, Dr. Alex, what are things that you want people to know? Obviously, we'll make sure, and we put in the chat how to pre-order the book. So that's wonderful. Thank you for that. What are, as we wrap up, what are the sort of the pieces that you want people to know?
Well, there's probably too long for the final segment here, but I think the main message would be, I really want people to recognize and appreciate that they have the opportunity, should they so choose, to become the highest, best version of themselves. Like, I really genuinely believe everyone has signature strengths that if they capitalize on and align around their core values, that they can have a life that they're really thrilled about and where they're achieving their full potential. And the nice thing about it is, you use the word simple in an earlier segment. Like, to me, a lot of this stuff is simple. It's not easy. It's very challenging to put in a regular mindfulness practice, to be disciplined enough to get a good night's sleep, to progressively push yourself to higher, harder things like you were just talking about, and jumping out of planes, right? And again, not everyone has to jump out of planes to do that, but it does take a real commitment to become that best version of yourself. But there's nothing in the book, there's nothing I would ask you to do that's like, stand on your head for 30 seconds 5 times a week kind of thing. Like, it's pretty straightforward for making it happen. And so what I'd really encourage people to start with is some of the foundational elements of your own personal excellence. So these are things like identifying your core values and then setting goals that align with those values and figuring out what you can do each day to get closer to those goals. We know that when people are feeling like they're making meaningful progress on their goals, they're bound to feel better and feel like their life is higher quality. So that would be an easy place to start. I'd encourage people to pick up a regular mindfulness practice or a breathwork practice. And then I'd encourage people to do a little bit of self-reflection at the end of the day. I teach every pro athlete I work with the same kind of 3-step formula. It's basically, what did I do today that I want to keep doing? What did I do today that I want to do differently? And what did I learn? And what you'll find is when you go through those questions consistently, it takes you 3 to 5 minutes, like nothing more. You're going to start to extract some real patterns and insights about what helps you be your best, what maybe takes away from you performing well. And then you can, of course, iterate and change based on what you've learned. And so those would be some great starting points. But again, I just want people to recognize that it's all possible for you if you put in the work.
That's beautiful. And I've heard that probably more this year than any other year, that people don't realize they can, right? That the option's even there, that most people don't even understand that it's there. And I love that in terms of simple, not easy, right? And you know what, to that point, I think if we continue to do it, eventually it becomes easier, right? Everything is hard at the beginning, right? Michael Jordan got cut from his team. Kobe didn't score any points in a whole summer playing, like, I mean, we all start somewhere, right? But it's going to be difficult. But if we continue to put in that time and effort, it'll grow. And then it's never easy, right? But it's not, we all know how to release weight. Why do we have an epidemic of, why? Because we don't actually execute on, right? They're not actually doing what you're talking about. They know what to do. They just don't do it. Right.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. What's the easiest way for people to get a hold of you?
You can find me everywhere, for better or worse. I'm on X, formerly Twitter, at Alex Auerbach Ph.D. LinkedIn, same thing, Alex Auerbach Ph.D. You can find me online, alexauerbach.com. My email's right there. If you submit a contact form or reply to my newsletter, momentum.alexauerbach.com, it comes directly to me. I read everything that comes my way. I respond to everybody. I really believe that that's important, and part of my personal mission is to make this work more accessible. And I believe that it's my responsibility then to give people attention and, help them figure out how to be on their best path. So those are all the places you can find me. Please don't hesitate to reach out.
That's awesome. Well, and my call to action for you, for people today, get on Dr. Alex's email list. It's amazing, the tips that come there every week. Pre-order the book, and he put the link in the chat to be able to do that. It's an autographed copy. Yeah, autographed copy. Get in there and do that. And then, you know what, like you say, write down and journal what's your call to greatness. What are things that you want to do? What are the goals that you want to push yourself forward with? And then actually do something with it, right? It's not they say the road to hell is paved with good intention. Like, it was the good intention that was the problem. That wasn't the problem. Nobody actually did anything with the good intention. That's the problem. So, write it down, but then do something with it, right? And thank you so much for being. I've been so excited for this episode, because I'm like, I can't wait to talk to you live. And again, I want to do it more. You and I want to be able to talk some more, but you know what? Massive appreciation for you being here and sharing with my audience today. And it's an honor to have you. I've learned a ton today. I've got like 4 pages of notes I had taken, and some of the stuff I've added to while we've been talking. So thank you for that. And keep doing what you're doing, because it's absolutely critical and needed, especially now. And I think there's a lot of people looking for what you and I both do, more and more people. So please keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you so much. I really, truly, from the bottom of my heart, you inspire me a lot. So thank you for that. All right, so next week, same time, same happy beard, Friday, November the 22nd, we're going to talk about, oddly enough, and that wasn't set that way on purpose, but the discipline of daily excellence will be the topic next week. So we're going to talk about some of those simple things that are hard to execute, not so easy to execute. Next week, we're going to talk about that. And so as we go this today, let's, don't forget to pause and breathe, but plug into the tools that are available, right? Reaching out to people. Dr. Alex just said, if you reach out to him, he'll respond to you. People sometimes are like, oh, it's too expensive. I can't afford a $40 book. Now, they'll blow $200 or $300 at the bar on the weekend without blinking an eye, right? But again, it's the priority of it all. But at least plug into the free stuff. There's free, you can get on his email list. It'll give you the tips and things that you can execute that aren't costing you anything but the time to actually do it, actually execute for yourself. Show up for yourself. When that happens, you'll cascade into people around you. Their lives will get better because you made yourself better. And so that focus around increased awareness is a key piece. But build for you, right? This week, be courageous. Step out, step through that fear. Be unapologetically, unabashedly you. No one else can do that. Make it another great week, because you can do that. You've got the power to do it. Live out you abundantly and with intention. Know that I love you. Big, massive hugs. We'll see you next week. And as we go, The question I'm always asking you, who are you being? Not what are you doing, who are you being? We'll
Thank
see
you for
next
tuning
week.
into the Long Bearded Guy Show. You are appreciated and loved. Gordon D. Melville returns Fridays at 12 noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific on the InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Until then, make it another great week, leading with love, powerfully designing, crafting, and living out your positively impactful legacy life you were created for. Big hugs.